Hello and welcome to another episode of Dance Teachers Academy. I am your host, Jose on the mic, and with me as always is the lovely, amazing dancer, May. How are you doing?
I am great, and I'm very excited to have...
Well, first of all, let's just say you look like $1 million in tax-free, so...
Well,
yes,
thank
she
you.
does, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
Thank you, my friends. And speaking of friends, a dear, dear friend of mine, Susan Parish Walker. We've known each other for a long time, yes.
It's been a minute since we had a chance to talk, actually.
I know. It has been.
You know what? We have quite a bit of catching up to do.
We do.
Yes.
It's been a while.
Yes, and I'm excited to talk about your book that you just wrote, Body Esteem.
Body Esteem.
Yes.
And Piece of Cake, Piece of Mind. Yes, and it was...
Piece
Love
of
that
cake?
title. Piece of cake.
Piece of Cake and Piece of Mind.
I could do both.
Well, that's what I hope people will learn to do, is have no guilt when they enjoy their birthday cake.
Absolutely.
So we met through dancing.
Right.
So I instructed you and your husband, and I've had so many nice times preparing you for different events in Vienna and in Argentina. And the two of you are with Walker
World Traveler.
Yes,
Nice.
yes. Walker Wellness Clinic, which is connected with Cooper Clinic here in Dallas.
Right. We're located on the campus at Cooper Aerobic Center, but we have our own business, and then we also have a clinic that's located in Houston as well.
Yes, and then your clinic specializes in
Eating disorders, body image issues, depression, anxiety, and stress. And I've practiced for about 35 years. I act as the clinical director now. I don't practice or see patients anymore. So I kind of oversee the staff.
Sure.
So
and a lot of emergency situations.
Big mama at home. I got you.
Right.
With I remember in your practice there were some times where you would call and say, we have an emergency.
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's unfortunate, May, because with eating disorders, they have the highest mortality rate of any mental disorder.
Oh, wow.
And
Really?
Yes. And I also like to say,
Even more than dentist?
yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
because
a
there's
bold
so many
statement.
medical and psychiatric problems that are correlated with their diagnoses, like cardiac complications, infertility.
Okay.
There's just a lot of issues, so you have to be not only on top of the psychological aspect of it, but also the medical, and that's why we have a full team behind us.
Wow.
Doctors that can give them medical clearance, and cardiologists, OB-GYNs, that sort of thing. So it's pretty complex.
Nutritionists.
Yes, we have dietitians that work for us that are trained, and they have a clinical expertise in working with eating disorders.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I know you have such a heart to help people, and I love this about you. And I'm very excited about the book, Body Esteem, Piece of Cake,
and Piece of
and
Mind.
Piece of Mind. I love that. And I just think that is so important. Dancers, obviously, run into this issue.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
It's very
I've
common
had
body image issues.
Yes, and I have judges even recently said, "Oh yeah, I didn't mark you and your partner because your partner was fat." And so
Who does
So
that?
sad and so tragic.
I heard it. I heard it. Now we have to be fit, and there's a certain look, but I do want to talk about, or have you talk about, how to have that balance in your mind. So I like that. So you've been helping people that have been in real trouble, but now you're on the other side of it, right?
Right.
Where you're really going to empower people so they maybe don't get into a situation like
Right.
that. Okay.
Well, I came to the conclusion after treating patients for 35 years. In fact, my mom passed away 2 years ago of dementia.
Sorry for your
So-
loss.
Thank you, Jose. And she said to me, my mom was very sassy. I loved her to pieces. And I dedicated the book to her. And she said, well, if you're going to dedicate it to me, Susan, it better be a New York Times #1 bestseller, damn it. And I said, okay. No pressure, Mom. No pressure.
Yeah,
But
drop the gauntlet big time, yeah.
In all
Nice.
seriousness, she said to me, sweetheart, she goes, I'm not trying to induce any kind of guilt or anything, but she said, it would be a shame for you not to share your knowledge and expertise, since this is such a problem, not for just the patients you treat in your clinic,
Right.
but, across the board. I mean, 69% of women have body dissatisfaction. They just don't like their bodies. And we spend, according to the current research, we spend 61 minutes per day thinking about food, body image issues. And I say in the book, that takes the cake. because if you think about it, that doesn't allow a lot of room for your creative temperament, any kind of interesting, intellectually stimulating conversations or thoughts. And
This time of the year is the worst for you because you have to get that beach body.
Yes, exactly. So to answer your question, as you know, Ame, I go around the world. Philip's like, I hope you can be succinct tonight. I'm like, I'm trying.
You don't have to.
I'm trying, but I just
Philip, we're gonna try to keep her on task here.
yeah, keep me on task. But what I decided to do was share this message with other people. So the book is written, it's kind of unique in that it's got pop culture in it, as well as clinical knowledge and my expertise.
Great.
Because I want it to be written for people you're referring to, like the dance teachers. I had the opportunity, and I loved it, working with ballroom dancers, ballerinas, ice dancers, which was just phenomenal. That was so much fun to work with. But just the story
Those people
you just
can burn
said,
some calories.
I know, they can. But they all require such precision. And on one hand, there's a new study that came out about ballroom dancers that I just love. It said that if you're engaging your cognitive abilities and at the same time you're using physical activity, and they cite ballroom dancing, they said that really helps with brain health.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll
Absolutely.
turn 60 in July, so I'm like, ooh, I want to know all about this brain health stuff. But any kind of dance, or because you're having to really strategically think about the next step,
Yes.
especially the guys, as you well know.
Yes.
Sure, you're engaging the brain
Yes,
constantly.
you are. And so it prevents a lot of things like dementia and Alzheimer's. And so I'm happy about that. But more importantly, I want to change this stigma. You know, I want to promote that we all are autonomous. We all have different bodies, and I have an article that I wrote. It's a blog, and I also have in my book where I talk about body trends through the ages. And it's so fascinating how we as girls and women want to try to be in vogue with whatever decade is going on. I mean, if you don't mind, I'll walk you through it.
Sure.
In the 40s, for example, what was popular for body trends was wearing the padded shoulders and bras that they called the bullet.
Yes.
Very pointed, very perky breast, okay? Then as we approach the 50s... that's
Jane Russell whole thing.
Yes, the hourglass. And that's also the time that Playboy and Barbie emerged in the 50s.
Okay.
And also Weight Watchers. And many people wanted to go on Weight Watchers to fit into that particular hourglass figure. Then we hit the 60s, and we think of Twiggy, and very emaciated, very slender. 70s, we kind of went back to still being slender, but you could have curvy hips. And I'm a 70s gal. I graduated in 1977 from high
Well,
school.
God bless you, girl.
And then the
Hey,
80s.
aplauso.
And then in the 80s, if you think about the 80s, they introduced, that was kind of the era of fitness, which was a step in the right direction. I really do believe in physical fitness and taking care of your body.
Sure.
Not only your psychological health, but your physical health. But a lot of women during that decade in particular felt enormous pressure to not only be thin, but to be fit as well. And that's also the decade where they introduced ageism, that we as women were held to the same standard as younger women in terms of our body type.
Yes.
If you think about that.
Yes.
And then the 90s.
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The 90s, I'm not sure really how you would describe the 90s. Do you guys have any insight on that? I mean, I think about people were more preoccupied with carbs and that sort of thing in the 90s. But then when we get to the 2000s, all of a sudden, booties were the new rage. You could even
That's
I think
right.
with the 90s.
Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, I think with the 90s you can come in. That's kind of where the start of the CrossFit started.
You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, where it was okay for women to sit there and look muscular but still feminine.
Right.
Good
right.
point.
That's an excellent point. And then in 2000, we start talking about the booties bra. And I will never forget when I was practicing, one of my adolescents, they tell you exactly what they think. And she goes, Susan, you could buy a butt bra because you have a flat butt. And I said, sweetheart, I appreciate the tip and the advice, but one bra is enough for me. And now, the most...
I didn't even
Now
know
you're
there was
stri-
a bra bag.
I didn't either until you learn everything working with teenagers and young adults.
You start strapping on too many things.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that?
And then
Where do you stop and where does it begin? Honestly.
That cracks me up. And then now there's this new thing, and I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but particularly if you're in a swimsuit or shorts or whatever, you do the Barbie stand, where you stand on your tippy toes, and it gives you the illusion of elongating the body, and you look more slender.
Shut the front door.
I know.
So we're supposed to walk around on our tippy toes.
Who does that?
So, okay, let me recap all that for you. Okay, so you've got to go from being, we'll say, hourglass, curvy, to all of a sudden being physically fit, and then all of a sudden you have to go on the carbs trend if you want to follow what everybody else is doing with a diet culture, and then you have to be thin and physically fit, and then all of a sudden your butt needs to go from being flat to having a full booty.
This is a lot.
It's a lot, and it wears me out just to think about it. But
Hey, listen, not all white women can show a Brazilian booty. I
know, that's true.
That's kind of the way it is.
That's true. And interestingly enough, now plastic surgeons are saying that when patients come in, they ask for a specific name. I want lips, like Angelina Jolie. Or I want a butt, just like Kim Kardashian's. So we do have this trend in our culture and the diet culture. And I guess the thesis of my book is embrace your own autonomy. You know, I think sometimes we go to the other extreme. If you've noticed on social media, more women are posting pictures of themselves with like tattoos on their breasts and they don't have hardly anything else on. But I do not want to neglect physical health, because I think regardless of your body type, that you have to maintain healthy psychological health and also physical health. And that's why...
You still got to carry that body around.
Right, exactly. And I think it concerns me greatly that we may be going to the other side, saying you can be whatever size or shape you want, you can eat whatever you want, you can binge, and I want to make sure that my message is, yes, don't deprive yourself, because 80% of the people out there binge because they feel deprived. I love ice cream and I love Chardonnay wine. Those are two things.
They go great together.
They do. Those are two
do.
things I'm not going to give up. But I want to make sure that we are
sea salt caramel.
That's to die for.
Oh, girl, honey, hush.
But you bring that up, Jose. That's one of your favorites. One of my favorites is mint chocolate chip. But also the other issue
That's
that I
a good
bring
one,
out in
too.
the book is that men and women oftentimes feel guilty and remorseful after eating what they perceive as a forbidden food, instead of saying, I'm just going to really enjoy this. And I thought for a long time it's just because I see it in my clinical practice and in our clinics. But now that I'm no longer seeing patients, I do a lot of charity work. And I was at an afternoon tea in England. It was a fundraiser. And it was a lovely occasion. They had a pianist playing. They had every kind of exotic tea you can imagine. And the Brits, my husband's British, they do love their afternoon tea.
Yes, they do.
And I was expecting some really interesting, thought-provoking discussion. We spent the whole time talking about our bodies. One lady said, I can't believe I'm having afternoon tea. I just came from a luncheon at Harrods. The lady next to me was so lovely and beautiful. She goes, this is going straight to my hips and thighs. And then there was
That's a wrong mentality right there.
Yeah, there was a bride-to-be, and she said, I can only have tea sandwiches. I can't have dessert because I'm getting married in a few weeks. And that saddens me that it's so prevalent in our culture. And I want to change that. I do think that we can find moderation. And I think we can satisfy our cravings without, just sabotaging our waistline and blowing our bodies up and them not being healthy. I think there is some balance. But I think we have to find a way to get there.
Well, it takes discipline. Honestly, is all it is. I mean, because I'll listen. No, I am the rare thing. I'm the anomaly that's out there.
Yeah.
I am the anomaly, and I will go ahead and face up
You
to
don't
that.
have to
Right?
be concerned about your body type.
Well,
He's
no,
very self-motivated.
It's that I'll only eat when I'm hungry, and then when I'm eating and when I'm no longer hungry, I stop eating.
That's very healthy.
Yes.
I promote that in the book.
Yeah.
I have a hunger rating scale that I design, and it's where you honor your hunger. When you have hunger sensation, you honor
Feed it.
But when you reach satiety, you're satisfied and you stop.
Stop.
But a lot of people can't do that, Jose, because
I did
have a lot of emotions
preface
going.
that.
Yeah, they're stressed or they're angry or maybe they're celebrating, and so I think it's emotional eating. There's a study done at University of Maryland that said 75% of people eat out of emotions, that they're not cognizant of what's going on with them, and then they just eat excessive amounts, and they do what I call disassociate. They're not even, it's like, how did I polish off that whole bag of chips? A large bag and a liter of Coke. How did I do that? I wasn't even in the moment. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah. So not a body
your approach
experience.
is very healthy.
It's just something I've done all my life.
Yeah, it's natural.
I don't even think about it.
But I applaud you for that, because
Right.
I have to teach people that sometimes in my practice.
I was going to say, how would you teach someone that? Because this is lifelong for him, and
I don't even think about it.
right,
Yeah,
It just happens.
But there are so many men and women, like you said, that eat emotionally, and I think that everyone has been there at least once. Like 100% of people have been there. Anyway, but so how do you walk them through that, and maybe use some points from the book as well?
Okay. As I said, I have a hunger rating scale that helps you measure, when you're hungry, and do you eat till you exceed satiety, so you can definitely, mark that on your scale. Secondly,
Is there some numeric? Okay, because people associate numbers,
right,
and so
you can mark it.
10%, 100%. I'm like, where are we?
Exactly. And at the same time, they record their emotional state prior to eating, during the eating phase, and after their food intake.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Because with people who have bulimia nervosa, when they're eating, they do get this euphoric feeling. They get excited. The serotonin upsurge happens, which is a chemical in the brain that if you're anxious or stressed or depressed, it's depleted. But then they go through a phase of enormous guilt and remorse, and that's why they purge or over-exercise to get rid of the ingested calories. So it can be taught. The goal, however, is to eventually go from what you were just describing, Jose, all the way over to what I call intuitive eating. It's a psychobabble term, but it's called interoceptive awareness, and it's on the Eating Disorder Inventory 3. But basically what it means is people who are not in touch with their emotions usually are not in touch with whether they're hungry or full. And the more they become psychologically sophisticated and introspective.
So they're disassociated to their...
what's going on, yeah.
Yeah, basically they're out of touch.
Exactly. And the sad part about it, that's always I've never had a really clear answer, especially for parents when they ask me this question. People who have a formal eating disorder usually have a higher IQ than the people in the normal population. And people
They're in tune with their bodies, that's why.
They are so smart. I mean, I've worked with anorexic patients that were in all AP classes, were 5'6" and weighed 92 pounds, and they made straight A's that semester. And so when we talk about the fact that if you're not getting enough protein to your brain, you're going to have irrational thoughts, and you're going to be very confused. And
alcohol does the same thing,
yes,
but
exactly.
That's a different story.
That's a different story. But it is comorbid sometimes with
Yes.
disorders,
Yes.
or there's a cross addiction between
Sure,
the two.
absolutely.
So that part is very sad in that they're so bright and knowledgeable, but they don't see, they don't have the kind of self-esteem I want them to have. So in the book, I really do talk a lot about building self-esteem and not looking to other people to validate who you are as a person.
That's important.
It's
That is
very
important.
because I think there's a tendency, especially for children and teenagers, they want to get the approval of other people. They're approval seekers, and that
Social media does not help that, by
it
the
doesn't
way.
help it. It really doesn't.
Actually, that's you're fighting a three-headed dragon at that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
because now it's I post something and like 30 seconds later I want to see, hey, who liked my
I
stuff,
know.
or
Did
did
they
I get
share
any?
it with someone?
Did it get shared? I'm
Yeah.
like, otherwise I don't feel validated that I put
Right.
something out there that's good
Yeah.
content.
I talk a lot about social media in the book because I think it is really
Good.
prevalent.
Yes.
There's a diagnosis. I don't think it's a clinical diagnosis, but they did the study at University of California where they call it selfitis, where you're posting excessive amounts of pictures of yourself or with your boyfriend or friends all the time, and that you're on social media all the time. And the research is showing that that does not help body image. It doesn't foster body esteem.
No, it does not.
And
Causes depression.
depression. And
Yeah,
that's
because
another,
somebody didn't like your post, and
Yeah,
I'm
we're
like,
talking
I didn't
about-
get, or didn't get enough likes.
right.
I've heard about that
Yeah.
study recently.
Have you?
Yes.
And we're
Yeah.
talking about comparative analysis and being an approval seeker. And I think that I love social media in that you can kind of build your own scrapbook, you know. And I
Sure.
think technology is so advanced, and even though I'm not techie, I really get a kick out of social media.
Sure.
But
do
I
too.
think we have to vet what we watch on there all the time. I mean, if you're
clearly.
constantly looking at runway models who are emaciated, there's a tendency, especially for teenagers and adolescents and children, that they're very impressionable. And maybe that's what I need to look like, that heroin chic look. Maybe that's what I should aspire to be. So I think it's important.
Yeah, that hanger with a bed sheet on it. I'm like, come on, stop.
Yeah, exactly.
No, get
So-
some curves on you, girl.
Yeah.
Eat a sandwich.
Eat a sandwich.
Stop it.
By the way, if he were a doctor,
That would be his advice.
I'm like,
That's the answer. Eat a sandwich.
Yes, and
Honey, eat a
his
sandwich.
daughter is a therapist. I'm like, well, that would be your kind of. Good thing your daughter is taking care of that. And
She's a psych
Susan
major. I
Parish
do the
wants me.
engineering portion.
She would just say, eat a sandwich. There's a little more than that. And you're talking about a lot of that in your book, Body Esteem, how to build your self-confidence. Talk about another chapter in your book that would be
One that
entices.
Okay. Well, one that I wrote, my husband helped me with this chapter because he's an exercise physiologist and he has an expertise on the female fat cell. How nice for me to be married to someone who understands that as we age, we gain weight and we all
That
these
happens.
different things that happen to
Yeah,
women.
that-
Still
yeah,
a
that-
human being, by the way.
Thank
Yeah,
you. I
that
think
that
so,
5 to 8 pound a year trick. Yeah, we know this.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
There's a chapter I wrote called "Doing a Number on Yourself," and I dispute the
Cute.
BMI. I really think the BMI is not an accurate assessment.
That's
measure.
garbage. Let's face
It
it.
is.
It's
What are you
it's okay
talking
to say
about?
it.
Wait,
Body
what?
mass index.
Body mass
Thank
index.
you.
So they
Body
tell you.
mass index.
So they tell you at your height you should be this weight, and I'm like,
Right.
that's garbage.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so why
absolutely
do you
garbage.
think that?
Well, the reason I think that, let's take someone that, say at the Cooper Aerobic Center, a lot of the patients and fitness members, they're very toned, they exercise regularly, they have a low percentage of body fat, their muscle mass tissue maybe is a little higher because maybe they do weights or whatever.
Yes.
Some
with
of
my
them
problem.
on a BMI would end up, they would say you're overweight.
Yes.
And I dispute
Wow.
that in my chapter
Okay.
on doing a number on yourself. Probably some of the most accurate assessments, and there's 5 or 6 that we use, and Cooper Aerobic Center uses, and I really admire their research from the Cooper Institute, is either body composition, which is pretty, you've probably heard about that, the little pincher things.
And those aren't very accurate.
Yeah, that's
Hydrostatic weighing was
right.
always
Hydrostatic, that's the other one. The DEXA, which is one that's very, I call it the OCD test because it's very technical. It tells you how much body fat you have in your pinky and how much you have in your toes. And,
Yes.
And what is that called?
it's called the DEXA.
DEXA.
Yeah, the DEXA.
And that's used to determine if there's bone density problems with
Oh,
osteopenia
okay.
or osteoporosis, which is often common with someone who does have a formal eating disorder. And then some people are just genetically, predisposed to that.
Yeah, I knew that BMI was garbage.
It is.
I'm 6 foot. I put 6 foot. I put 190 pounds on this frame at 3.5% body fat, and my BMI went through the roof. It said I was fat. I'm like, are you kidding?
But isn't that sad?
It's stupid.
I mean, we have patients come to our clinic and say, well, my doctor told me I was significantly overweight because of my BMIs. And we're like, we don't use the BMI. We don't believe in it philosophically. We do not think it's accurate. And the rest of the things in the chapter.
You know what the BMI is? It's a bag of chips. You sit there, you get this really big bag, you open it up, and you get 3-4 chips in that thing. That's literally what it is. It's absolutely garbage.
It is. It is.
Absolutely garbage.
And
You get an empty bag.
But they've endorsed it, and overnight when they implemented it, it dates back to 1800s, by the way. But when they implemented it in the United States, it's like my husband likes to say, overnight 30 million people became obese, which is so sad.
So you think that you don't use that?
We don't use that.
So
we use
what
some of
do
the.
you use?
We use body composition, the hydrostatic weighing, or the
Yes.
DEXA. Believe it or not, just the old-fashioned tape measure is more accurate too.
Yes.
Also, when you weigh yourself on the bathroom scale, what you have to remember is that does not tell you your percentage of body fat or muscle mass tissue. And as we know, muscle mass tissue is 4 times denser than adipose tissue, which is fat tissue. So some people freak out and get obsessed with the numbers. We do weigh our patients just for medical reasons because many of them have cardiac complications and we have to monitor their vitals and so forth. So we do that. But the other aspects in that particular chapter is how we beat ourselves up. I was talking about remorseful
doing a
number on yourself. And it can be, for women in particular, it can be over their age or their weight, you know. And if we think about it, our weight should be similar to our body temperature. You know, we put so much emphasis on it to the point where I think we've gotten so obsessed with it that it's really sad. I can't recall the actress name. It's Jamila something. Anyway, she's with Kristen Bell. She started a podcast called I Weigh, WEIGH. And I quote some of the things in the chapter. I quote how Kristen Bell responded to it. And some of the things, you can't use numbers in your answer. And she said things like, you know, I have a scar on my tummy that proves that I did an extraordinary thing. She had a cesarean, you know, with her children.
Okay.
She said, I'm for the underdog. But if you think about it, we tend to correlate our body image and our self-esteem with what we weigh. We allow the scale or some form of measurement to dictate our emotions or how we feel about ourselves. And I really want to dispel that myth if I can, because, I mean, if you had sat in my office over the last 35 years and seen so many women, you know, cry their eyes out over their weight and their body image issues, it's tragic. It's really, really sad.
And you might be looking at them going, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful
girl. I know,
girl.
exactly. So I want us to...
Or guy.
Yeah, it happens to males too. I really want people not to put so much emphasis on that, to look at it as it's just another statistic or number, like my blood pressure or whatever, you know, and not allow that to affect how they feel about themselves. So I go over a lot of things. I go over the Little Red Dress, which you probably know about that from the American Heart Association. Because cardiac disease is...
I know about the little red dress. But I know about the little black dress as well. I know that girl too.
Yeah, but a couple of years ago, you know, there was this myth or misunderstanding that men were dying at a faster rate with cardiac problems than women. Well, now they want to get a message out there to women that, you know, they're at risk for cardiac disease, and it is the #1 killer now of And so I talk about that, and I talk about how...
When did this change?
Gosh, I'm not exactly sure. I want to say 8 or 10 years ago, but don't quote me on that. I'm not
sure. So mid 2000s?
Yeah,
really.
So. But I think the reason I bring in the Little Red Dress, because most of us ladies have a black dress in our closet. A lot of women are not educated and knowledgeable about heart disease, and they won't go to the doctor for fear of being body shamed. Like, okay, Susan, you've gained 10 pounds. They'll like, I'm gonna avoid going to the doctor because he or she's gonna get on my case about my weight gain, and that leads to cardiac problems. And because they're afraid to go get a cardiac assessment.
Wow.
And you know why I say wow? Not because I'm surprised about it, because I'm in touch with a moment for my own self where I went, no, I'm not going to go to the doctor right now because it's January and I might be a few pounds heavier, you know, after the holidays. So I'm just going to wait because I don't want to weigh more on my chart. So I've done that.
A lot of women do that. A lot of women in girls do that.
Right. And so you're saying that it's possible because of different body images, the weight on the scale, that they're not maybe just going to a regular checkup. Like I did. I was like, oh, I'm just going to wait.
Just hold off on
it. Which might be, I'm admitting it. I'm like, I realize I did that.
And that's more the norm than you think because they don't want to be body shamed.
Apparently.
Yeah, because I went, I'm comparing my little chart. I'm like, okay, what was my weight last year? Oh, okay, well, I don't want it to be so off from last year. So this is
so where's the number? 3 pounds, 5 pounds? Where is it before? Okay, I weighed X a year ago. I can't go in until I get to, underneath
Well, it's just interesting because it's something that I'm just thinking about. I guess it's more subconscious, and you're talking about we've got to be conscious of that to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I did that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, women are maybe not going to the doctor because they, like you said, they're like
over 3 pounds. They're not going to the
But
doctor.
there's supposed to be variants. I mean, if you have a disease like endometriosis, which I had, or irritable bowel syndrome, you're going to have bloating, and you're going to have changes and variance in your weight. It fluctuates, and your weight is supposed to fluctuate. I mean, it is unrealistic and unobtainable to think that you're going to weigh the same every single day. That's why we don't recommend weighing daily. And neither does Cooper Clinic. They weigh like every 2 weeks. If your goal is to lose some weight, maybe your electrolytes are elevated, or you want to just get healthier or more physically fit. What's so frustrating for people who want to lose weight is, even though you've been compliant with your behavior, it sometimes doesn't show up until a couple of weeks later. So if you're weighing yourself every day and you're like, the scale's not moving and I can't believe this, that leads to a lot of disappointment and frustration.
Hey kids, if your scale's not moving, just put it on that side of the bathroom. I mean,
put it away for a while.
Put it on that side of the bathroom.
So that's one way that I could see that. We could easily do a number on ourselves.
Yes.
What's another example of that?
Another example, let me think, what else did I put in there about that chapter? We talk at length about the research in terms of statistics, which could get a bit boring, but for how you can improve not only your psychological health but your physical health over the years, and some things that you can do. And I also challenge the reader to, if they get their blood work and it doesn't look so good, maybe their sugars or their their glucose levels are elevated or something, that's not written in stone. They can feel empowered to make some changes.
That's an easy fix, actually.
Yeah, or if your doctor
Health-wise.
says, you know what, you're really close to being diabetic, you can introduce some changes. It's not written in stone. So you don't have to take that information and do a number on yourself. I encourage the reader to take that information and say, okay, this is a warning sign. It's a red flag, so I need to work out more or eat healthier or whatever.
Make some changes.
One of the things that I wanted to bring out in the book, that chapter's kind of off the cuff and different. Philip also puts one of his exercise prescriptions in there, which is really interesting. And it's one you can do anywhere you'd like, if you're traveling or at home or at the gym, whatever. But just to kind of go back to the overall concept of the book, I created a philosophy years ago because I learned a lot from working with people, and I'm like, okay, what can we do to prevent this from going to the extreme where it goes into a formal eating disorder? So I came up with this concept. You may have read the book Emotional Intelligence. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
Okay, it was written by.
I'm dyslexic. I don't do a lot of reading unless I have to. Yes.
It's basically people who have a low emotional intelligence. They, again, may not be really in touch with their emotions or be able to identify them, but oftentimes their IQ is really, really high. And I've seen that in working with a lot of males, and I love working with males, but sometimes they're highly intelligent, CEO, an attorney, very accomplished, but they're clueless about what's going on emotionally in their lives, whether it be relationships or whatever.
Well, emotionally, I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, not physically. They're in tune with their body. They're just emotionally out of touch. I can see that.
Yeah, and it was written by a Harvard professor, and I think it's a great book because it really teaches you how to increase your emotional intelligence. So when we started, we were coming up with ideas. I feel very honored that I have a creative temperament. I inherited that from my mom. I thought I want to do something that's
number one bestseller.
Yeah, exactly. That's always in the back of my mind, I have to tell you.
Well, now it's in front of you now.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have a creative temperament.
Yes, and so I thought I want to come up with something that people can sink their teeth into and they can relate to. So I came up with the quotient idea, body esteem quotient. And I thought, what comprises the body esteem quotient? How do you, and the definition of body esteem is just having positivity about your appearance, your body type, and also appreciating individual body parts, if it be your arms, your legs, your stomach, whatever. And I thought, what comprises that? And what I've learned as a clinical director and a psychotherapist is that usually ends up being your psychological quotient. Are you healthy, psychologically speaking? How's your psychological functioning? Do you have a personality disorder? Is anxiety disorder going on? What's going on?
Yeah, that's that 6 inches between your ears.
Yes, and there's actually an assessment that you can take. It's called the psychological quotient, and you can score it. It's in the book, and then you go to my website, so you won't cheat, and you can see your test results. And then the second quotient would be the nutrition quotient, and I was fortunate enough to have our dietitians collaborate with me on that chapter. And there are a lot of myths and misunderstandings about nutrition. I mean, I've kind of heard it all, seen it all from 35 years of having dietitians on the team that I was privileged to work with. And so I dispute a lot of the diets and how that the research shows that in longitudinal studies that chronic dieting does not work. And I even get the definition of chronic dieting, and then I introduce normalized eating, and there are several different bullets I have under normalized eating.
Let's go back to that point because the
nutrition.
Well, you just said the
normalized eating.
Yeah, what? Because how do you quantify that?
So that's in the book. That's so interesting, and I think that's important because.
I mean, at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and go, okay, here's where it is. Don't go there or don't go there.
It's not really that strict or rigid. It's
I just need a definition.
On some days,
it's in the book.
Yeah, you have to buy the book.
Gotta buy the book. Damn you! There's no shortcuts.
I think this is so important. Go ahead. What were you saying?
It has nothing to do with food itself. Normalized eating is the attitude that you have towards food. So there may be some
that makes
days,
sense.
Yeah, some days you may have more significant cravings. Some days you may eat less. Some days you may eat more. Some days you may not have the proximity to food. You may not have access to it right away, and you have to wait. That
makes total sense to me.
It doesn't have to be this rigid, structured plan that we think about. And with chronic dieting, there's now actually a definition. The dietitian helped me with this, where women will go usually on a diet, generally speaking, at least 17 times over their lifetime. That's a lot of dieting. You know, it really is.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of like fasting kind of dieting?
Chronic dieting, like getting your caloric intake really low.
Yeah, so
that's what I call chronic dieting.
Fasting sort of thing.
Keto or something.
Low carb.
Yeah.
And the studies show, this longitudinal studies show it doesn't work. It's
no, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And so I dispute that in the nutrition chapter to help people understand. And I also say to the reader, it's not you that is the failure here. The diets are failing you.
Interesting.
Because they're not effective. And there's a study at Harvard that talks at length about that 95% of people who go on a chronic diet gain it all back and more. And we see that all the time. You know, it's like, okay, this is my third diet now. My weight's higher than it's ever been.
Wow.
And the Harvard study says the best diet is a diet that contains all the food groups and that it's only a portion of your daily quality of life or lifestyle. Not
all things in moderation.
Yes, not that it just consumes you all the time. So I go over that, and then
like, listen, it's okay to eat ice cream. Just don't eat the half gallon. Take 8 ounces and you're good to go.
Yeah, actually, it keeps you from overeating later.
Exactly.
If you satisfy your cravings.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
other
right.
quotients, of course, I said there's the exercise quotient, which Philip helped me with, and that one is really interesting. And I was writing it, I guess, for my age group, and my agent said to me, Susan, you got to jazz this up a bit. You know, I know you're working at Cooper Aerobic Center where most people are 40 and up, but you got to jazz it up. So I found all these hilarious studies on different runs across the world. And is it the Galapagos Islands? Yeah, they have a major run there. They have one. They have one called an undies run, where you only run in your underwear. And I thought, I'll skip that one. They have a chocoholic run where you get Ghirardelli chocolate. I know you know about that, being from California.
Ghirardelli's awesome.
I try to make the exercise fun because I have a confession. I do not like to work out, but I do it. and I work out 4 days a week, and I put in a little bit extra time because I don't have to do it more than 4 days a week. The only thing I love to do is ballroom dance because of this lady here.
Aww.
She's such a wonderful teacher.
Aplauso.
We learn so much.
Aplauso.
And I would ballroom dance with you every day. If I had the time and the money, I would say,
I'll just move in.
Yeah, just move in with me. But I talk about that the studies
you know what? Let's
show-
talk about this offline.
Okay, sounds
It's
good.
not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah. Because the studies show that you don't have to like exercise to be compliant. You have to find the benefit in it. And for me, the benefit, aside from ballroom dancing, which I absolutely love, is it reduces my stress.
Okay.
I have better body image, which the research shows that happens. Even if you're not losing weight or getting a lot more tone, you start to feel better about your body esteem. And
Yeah, it's easier to move that thing around.
yeah, and it reduces my anxiety level.
Perfect.
Allows me to chill out, and then I have a glass of wine afterwards. You know, to
It's a bonus.
yeah. So I think there's kind of this misunderstanding out there that you have to be a jock and you have to love working out. It is great if you can find something that you love. You know, like tennis.
No, then it's not
or
work,
whatever.
yes.
Yeah, but
Sure.
I've never found anything except ballroom dancing and twirling. I was a full-time twirler in high school. But aside from that, it's
That
just
still works.
not my cup of tea. You know.
Yeah.
But it is a must. I mean, I don't think we can compromise on that. I think it's really necessary for not only your psychological health but your physical health. And then the last quotient, we've talked about nutrition, psychological, exercise, is fashion. And that one I have.
Girl, you got to look
with.
fabulous, otherwise,
That's right.
why are we doing this?
Yes, that's right. And I like doing the fashion one. A lot of my colleagues or people in the field of eating disorders really disagree with that. I, however, believe in Spanx. I've seen people wear Spanx with a cocktail top.
That's Spanx.
Spanx,
my
yeah.
bad. Hey, okay,
This is
I'm
to
sorry.
make a lady look slim
Yeah,
or
Yes.
a gentleman.
I think it just gives
Thank
you
you.
a very smooth silhouette if you're
Yes.
wearing a beautiful cocktail dress. And it's not so much that I'm saying put those Spanx on because you need to drop 20 pounds. It's more like, okay, if that's going to enhance how
Help
you feel about
gather
your
you
body,
up. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And if it's going to
I'm
just
cool
smooth
with that.
everything out, what's wrong with that? So,
Voluptuous is nice.
yes, it is.
Well presented.
Yes. So
I
I
have no
talk
problem
about
with that.
wardrobe choices, and I also go over one thing that's really fascinating to me, and I wish I had the studies in front of me, but different types of jewelry for the size of your face. If you have a fuller
Nice.
face or square, the different types of necklaces and earrings that maybe if you're self-conscious about your face will either elongate it or maybe you want it to be fuller.
Also accentuate.
Yeah, exactly.
Positively.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So,
And I think then when you're focusing on something fun like that with fashion, which most women love when we're talking about, fashion, then you can focus your brain to, earrings and necklaces and different necklines that maybe you don't hyper focus on.
exactly.
I'm not looking the way I should be looking right now. And then this shaming, let's talk about that.
The
a
body
little bit.
shaming?
Yes.
Yeah. I love what you just said because that's why I believe in the fashion quotient.
Yeah, that
if
makes
there's
sense.
something that you can do that will just enhance that body esteem factor, make it go up just a little bit more, I think fashion is it. I mean, after you've had a baby, you might wear a caftan for a while because you just you're not feeling it.
You want to wear a really fashionable one.
Yes, exactly. So,
Look fabulous. Hey, whatever you wear, look fabulous in it.
yes, exactly.
You put a tent on. Fine. Look beautiful.
Yeah. And
I'm
I just
good with
think it
that.
helps, especially if women are in transition, because I'm sure you've heard people say, well, I didn't go back to my class reunion, or I don't want to see so-and-so because last time I saw them, I put on 30 pounds. I don't want to see anyone. And I'm trying to encourage them to use their fashion quotient and not allow their emotions to dictate whether they go to an event or not. It's like, okay, I don't look like I did when I was in high school. But,
Nobody does.
But I want to see my friends.
Right.
I want to go to the reunion.
Yes.
And what can I do with my fashion quotient to feel better about my body when I'm there?
I love that.
So that's why I feel very strongly about the fashion quotient. And I find that most women are very interested in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, I use the example, I was a bridesmaid 17 times before I was a bride. And I have all the ugly bridesmaid dresses to prove
it's
it.
not just a funny movie.
No, it's not just a movie.
17
times. Yeah, I was a popular gal.
Oh, apparently so.
It was like, but
I feel bad I didn't call you. Like, damn.
I know, I'm like
had
a professional bridesmaid.
I had a professional bridesmaid right here, and I just.
But I finally realized, because I'm a curvy gal, I finally realized that most bridesmaid dresses are cut for preteens or teenagers. Yes. And I was a bridesmaid in my 20s and my 30s, okay? And so after patients crying their eyes out in my office about, I've got to go to this wedding, and I try my bridesmaid dress on, and they don't have one in my size. And I tell my story about 17 times. And it took me that long to realize there's nothing wrong with my body. They cut them. The fabric, they cut them where you really have a hard time doing alterations. You can't insert some fabric, but it makes it difficult. So that's where I think your fashion quotient can come in and kind of help you understand those things and not beat yourself up. Another aspect of that chapter, which is great fun, I did this with all my patients, is I call it be the curator of your own closet. That if you think about a museum, I love art museums, and when we travel, I always love to go to art museums, and you're in charge of your closet. And most girls, women, boys, men have different sizes. It's unrealistic to think that you're always going to be a size 10, and designers cut it differently. And I encourage.
And that's the thing, I made that comment to Amay here a couple of days ago. It's like a women's clothing now. This is just what I've learned. Not that I know anything of. Every designer has, so you have a size 10 dress.
Right.
You go to 15 different designers, they're all different.
You're absolutely right.
They're not a size 10.
Yeah.
There's no standard.
Yeah, there's no standard. And it's interesting, I used to do with patients what I called, let's do a little retail therapy. And when we were in Highland Park Village, I would say, okay, let's go to the Gap. Now let's go to Ralph Lauren. Let's go to Escada. And I would say, think about what your sizes were. Now we buy a couple of things at each place. Then we bring them back to my office. We didn't really buy anything. We just mentally did this.
Sure.
And you hold all of them up. They're all the same size. The waist size, the breast size, the hips. But you may have an 8, you may have a 10, you may have a 12. That they're going to vary. And so if you're the curator of
could be
your
a
closet,
4, like,
yeah, exactly.
Really? I go from a 4 to a 12 and it's the same dress.
It happens.
It does.
Well,
it happens.
Because then it's a mental thing.
Yeah, but for a lot of people, they won't buy it because it's like, I'm not going to buy 12 because I've never been 12.
Nope.
Even though that designer cut it differently.
Mm-hmm. That's why the 4 is there, and it's the same thing as a 12 because, oh, I'm wearing a 4. No, honey, it's a 10.
That's where they get obsessed with the numbers, and they're doing a number on themselves.
Right.
I think about being the curator of your closet, that you have in your closet a couple of things that time of month when Mother Nature visits and you're a little bit more bloated, or you've just had a baby, or you've gained a few pounds, that they're just as chic and elegant as your other wardrobe pieces.
Don't be scared of Aunt Flo.
It's okay to wear those things and to be a little bit more comfortable during those times. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be at that weight or that size forever. But that is something I think that you need to factor in and keep in your closet. On the other hand, I talk about if you have a wardrobe where the sizes are so varied. I worked with a lot of patients who were obese and had bariatric surgery, came to me afterwards, and they were afraid to throw away their clothing they had been wearing when they were obese, in fear that they would gain their weight back. And I encourage them to get rid of it, because it's like, it's in the back of your closet, it's calling your name. You need to overcome this fear and find clothes that really flatter your body and flatter your favorite features.
When they reached the New World, Cortez burned his ships, and therefore everybody was well motivated.
Yeah. So, and I do a little, also a little, he is a funny guy.
He really is.
No wonder you married this guy. He's hilarious. Him and Philip would really like each other.
I
know. My Englishman cracks me up.
So I've heard.
Yeah. By the way, that I put an article in the book that we get a lot of endorphin effect from laughter and pet therapy and music. And
3 for 3 so far.
The best thing for marital satisfaction is if your partner is funny and playful and flirtatious. And my husband and I have that in our marriage, and you two seem to have that too.
Thank you.
So, even though I'm a lousy marriage counselor, so don't take it too seriously.
Well, yeah, your degrees aren't in that, so yeah, I understand.
But I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. It makes it flirtatious and playful.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I really like that. I like the curator of the closet.
I do too.
Yeah, and I think focusing on fashion super important.
I do too.
Why should we not? That's why I love, okay, I went to the, this might sound like I'm going off topic, but you'll see how.
You can go off topic.
Okay. Well, I just remember going to beach vacation and being very upset with the way I was looking at that moment. And, not feeling comfortable.
It's that time of the year.
In a beautiful setting, gorgeous setting.
Sun's out, bun's out. No, not this time.
And so I'm there on the beach.
Nice.
And there's this very big German lady. And I'm saying that because I just, happened to hear her speak. And just standing there, you could see she felt so good. And she was topless. And just standing there, looking at the ocean, and you could see she was just happy as can be, enjoying herself, enjoying her body. I was like, you know what?
Good for her.
I just learned a big lesson here.
I know.
And she's happy, and here I am in that moment, just like not happy, miserable, and beautiful. I'm like, okay, come on.
Yeah, get with it.
She just had her body out. And
I just wrote a blog
it.
about that. It's called Swimsuit Season is Not a Season. I mean, why do we have to squeeze ourselves in and get really thin just for the summer months? Why can't we take care of our bodies, be physically fit? Why do we have to put so much emphasis on swimsuit season is around the corner? Because it's so stressful for women.
I feel pressure already when you hear that.
Because
oh my gosh, it's around the corner.
That's a society thing. That's where
do you think it is?
Oh, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, if you spend any time at all watching television, I mean, you're bombarded, and I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this, but the 1 hour that you're sitting there watching television, you're getting hit through 12 to 15 minutes, and it's basically body shaming.
It is.
You're too fat, you're too this, you're too that, you're not here, you're not here, you're not supposed, you should be here. A quarter of the hour that you're spent, or you're getting bombarded.
Yeah. Gosh, even in beer commercials, right?
Even in beer, anything.
Yeah. It's true. It's not just social media, it's media and stuff.
No, I mean, they're trying to sell you these glasses, and who's doing it? You know what? Some pencil thin young lady up there. She's probably 19 years old. I mean, just gorgeous, tight frame, and you're like, I'm 60.
Look like her.
Yeah, I'm 50. I'm 55, 60 years old. Why can't I look like that? You did back then. Leave it alone.
It's a lot of paradoxical messages.
Sure.
And it's confusing for people. And, if you can get past that, and I'm not saying it's easy, because I think that we're all somewhat programmed from media, and sometimes I'm not blaming our parents, but, I had lovely parents. But my mom dieted a lot growing up, and she said to me one time, she said, I really regret going on all those diets. And I said, you know what I feel about Mom? I said, I feel sad for you, because I said, you were such a beautiful cook. I mean, she was a country cook. She could make any kind of cake from scratch. And I said, and the sad thing was, you had such a beautiful body. She was a curvy hourglass woman.
Oh,
But I think that we get conditioned from society, maybe our parents, and I think we need to introduce, I talk about this a little bit in some of my blogs on the website, I think we need to introduce body esteem etiquette. I mean, some of the things that people say to one another are shocking. I mean, one of my dearest friends just had a breast cancer, and she had the most aggressive type, and we've been friends for 40 years. And she called me one day, and she was in tears. And this was during her treatment. She had no eyelashes, no eyebrows, no hair.
And it all fall out.
Yeah, it all fallen out. And she was really upset. And she goes, Sue, can you believe that this week alone, 3 people have come up to me and said, oh, you had breast cancer. Well, my sister died from that. And Okay, so this is the funny part of the story.
Thanks for the encouragement. Yeah, appreciate that.
At the same time, I was going through, I had endometriosis, as I mentioned earlier, and had to have a hysterectomy when I was 21. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping kids, is because I could never have children of my own, and I want to make a difference in this world, especially when it comes to body esteem. But a couple of years, I'd already had 3 surgeries, and I was told it would never come back. So I was misdiagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, but it turns out that I had endometriosis and scar tissue that had been built up. So I had to have another surgery at 57 and at 58. And my little tummy looked like I was pregnant. It was like out to here, and it was like a basketball. It was so hard. And people were coming up to me and saying, when's your baby due? And on one hand, I was like,
wow,
that's kind of flattering. I'm 58, and I look like I'm in the childbearing years, And then one day I went home after someone at Target, I'd been shopping, said something like, well, it looks like you could deliver any day. And I was just in tears, and I thought, Susan, you've got some work to do, young lady, on your body esteem. So I told my friend Melanie, who, by the way, is doing beautiful. She's overcome her breast cancer, and she had a mastectomy.
Awesome.
And I said, this is what we're going to do, Mel. Next time somebody comes up to us and starts saying something derogatory about our bodies or our diagnosis or whatever, we're going to break out that supreme song. Stop! Sing with me. In the name of love. Before you break my heart. I said, because I'm shocked at the things that people will say and not edit,
No filter.
No filter, no mental filter, no. And I think...
No emotional filter either.
None. And I've been, for the last 3 years, getting... Philip set this up on my phone, where I get body shaming alerts through Google. And I read them all. And I am just astonished. I am shocked at the things that people say to other people.
It doesn't shock me anymore.
It's so hurtful. But Jose, from being a psychotherapist and having a specialty in this, I think there's more hypersensitivity about our bodies, and that type of criticism.
Oh no, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, it seems to
I don't disagree with that.
I think women, maybe men too. It seems like it just rocks their world.
Yeah,
And
it just doesn't. It doesn't shock me anymore what people will say anymore.
But we need to change that.
Yes.
It's not okay.
So that's interesting. Body esteem etiquette.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Body
so
esteem
instead
etiquette.
of going home and crying, going, excuse me, what you're saying
is hurtful.
Yes, and you can. And I like how you did that. First use humor, stop, and then they'll go. Hey, really, what you're saying is really hurting my feelings. Oh, maybe they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to,
And I know that when people were saying, oh, you're pregnant or whatever, they were saying it because, people are joyful when someone's going to have a baby. They're excited for them. I don't think those people meant to hurt my feelings or offend me, but I'm saying that so many uncalled comments are made.
Sure.
And it's
Clearly.
under the umbrella of, I was just joking. You know me. I was just teasing. Or don't be so sensitive.
Just boys being boys. No.
Yeah. It's not okay.
Right.
It's really
No, it is not. All right, Miss Susan, we can sit here for the next hour or 3 and continue doing this, but we're going to have to save some of this for the next time.
Okay.
We would
We would love to have you
This
back.
is so fun. This is my first podcast.
Is it?
Yay! I told you I had the gift of gab.
Well, yeah. Which is why I got to sit there and go, okay, you know what? We're going to save some of this for later on. Thank you
very
for
excited
For
being here.
having me. Yeah, this is
Absolutely.
really fun. And again, congratulations. I think you are such a beautiful couple. I love
Thank
this
you.
one.
And good luck with your book.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm
Thank
very
you.
excited about body esteem,
Piece of cake and peace of mind.
and peace
you
of
might want
mind.
to tell people it's not on Amazon right now. It probably will be at some point, but just to go to bodyesteem.com.
I was going to say,
Just
now is your time to do some shameless plugging.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not ashamed. Please buy it.
Bodyesteem.com. Sounds
right.
like an excellent book with
Thank
a
you.
lot of experts.
A
that
lot of
assist us.
information in there
Yes,
that's going to be, you know what, I'm going
including
to have to
the
get one of those.
Susan Parish Walker,
right.
my
Miss-
dear friend.
Miss Susan?
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. The lovely May.
Thank you, Jose.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, well, this has been another episode of Dance Teachers Academy. Thank you for watching.